My name is Dan Greenberg. I'm the CEO, founder of a company called ShareThrough. Has anyone actually heard of ShareThrough before? You have? Okay, a couple of people have. Nice. That's my director, VP of PR in the back, so he's doing a good job then. San Francisco-based company, technology company, venture funded. We're about a 65-person company now. And what we do, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, but I'm going to focus more on the creative side. But what we do is we work with brands who create content to distribute that content across the web. So we're not a creative agency, we're not a production shop, but we work with a ton of creative agencies and production houses. And when a brand like a Nike or a Coke or a Nestle or Pepsi, when they make content beyond traditional ads, so not annoying, interruptive pre-rolls and teeth whitening ads, but cool content, when they create that content, they come to us the same way you'd go to Google with a search ad. They come to ShareThrough with that kind of video content. We then distribute it out across the web, get people to watch and share it, do it as a technology-driven platform. I'll give you some screenshots in a little bit more detail. But the reason I wanted to start there is to say that the perspective that we're coming from, we're not content owners. We don't create content. But what we do is we help content creators curate that content and distribute that content across the web. I think we've run probably 2,000 plus videos now, all Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 brands. So again, through this platform, we're seeing a ton of data and a ton of creative agencies and sort of creative strategies that work and the creative strategies that don't work. So this is going to be a little bit more focused on branded content today, but I'm sure on the content owner side, you guys sometimes get those RFPs that say, how can you create branded content for me? Or at the end of the day, content is content, and I think that's the purpose of branded content, is that the better the content is, the better it works. So if you're just a pure content creator, hopefully some of these tips and tricks will help. I want to start at a really esoteric level, though. Before we dive into sort of the strategies and the tips and some video examples, I want to start really high level and then dive deeper into the tips inside. So to start out, I wanted to just tell a quick little story, like where ShareThrough exists, why we exist, and sort of this larger story around native advertising. Has anyone heard the word native monetization or native advertising before? No? Good. So I'm going to introduce it to you today. I'm trying to push it. I think it's a really interesting concept. So go all the way back to the year 2000. Look at AOL, look at Yahoo, look at any traditional banner ad buy. It's traditionally just dermatologists are angry or teeth whitening or belly fat, whatever. Fast forward 10 years or 12 years, and we're pretty much looking at the same thing. Dermatologists still just as angry as they were 10 years ago. To me, this is non-native. If you think about advertising that works and advertising that actually choose to watch and choose to spend time with, it's not banners in the corner. The business model of AOL is not to give you these banner ads, it's to give you content. So to put a banner ad in the corner, just not really native to the AOL experience. As a result of that, we all know this story, the great CTR decline. I'm not really going to talk about this today. This is the obvious way to talk about the problem. But what I'm trying to talk about today is a little bit more the other side of it. Not what doesn't work, but what does work and what actually is working. Does anybody use Tumblr? One person? You guys probably all know Tumblr, though. Tumblr is the more hipster version of WordPress, I'd say. Tumblr is a huge platform. I think they have 50, 60 million blogs now. They just announced last week what their monetization strategy is. What it is not this. Right? It's not banner ads in the corners. This would be a total mindfuck, pardon the French, if Tumblr was ever to introduce an AdSense ad in the corner of a page. So it's not going to happen. How about Pinterest? Does anybody use Pinterest? He does, nice. We have a couple women in the audience. Mel, I know you use Pinterest. I use Pinterest, and my fiance uses Pinterest. If Pinterest thinks about how they're going to monetize their site, same thing. No fucking way, right? There's no way that traditional banner ads are going to be the monetization model for Pinterest. What is going to work here is similar to sort of the concept of native. Promoted pins, promoted images, promoted videos, placements that actually feel like they're part of the Pinterest experience, that are actually visually built into it. If you look at what Twitter's doing promoted tweets. It's built into the experience here. And again, I'm starting sort of with the ad experience before I jump to the video side, because what I want to do is contextualize, once you've created content, where's it going now? Like once that content's been created, once it's been put up on YouTube, you've crossed your fingers and said, I hope people watch it. Now what happens, what you're doing is actually distributing it through promoted placements. So Twitter promoted tweets, awesome example. BuzzFeed, if you guys are New Yorkers, you probably know and love BuzzFeed and the BuzzFeed story. It's not traditional banner ads, it's native ads. These platforms, Facebook included, and actually this is probably a good time to talk about Facebook. They've got a $100 billion IPO going on, $5 or $6 billion of revenue. Zero of that, which is traditional foreign interruptive ads. All of Facebook revenue is native promoted videos, promoted stories, sponsored fan pages, all the things that are native to the Facebook experience. Now, what all these have in common, and I think this is what gets me so excited about what we're doing at ShareThrough, is it's about, you can't read the quote, so it says nobody reads advertising, people read what they want to read, and sometimes it's an ad. And so that's the sort of driving force behind all of this, is that native advertising and the concept of native monetization, specifically with video, is about content, not traditional ads, and it's content-driven ads. So what is native advertising? I had all these pictures on my computer, actually. I put this deck together on the plane. They came out perfectly. So what is native advertising? 3 sort of core tenets. Obviously, I just said the content one, but 2 other tenets here. They need to be visually integrated. So all the placements we just saw are native, visually integrated to the pages. Choice-based, so they're not interruptive, not annoying, but actually driven by choice. And then content-driven. It needs to promote content that actually is valuable to the user, not ads that sit in the corner and angry dermatologists. So what do we do, again, just to give you some of that context? We're a native video ad platform. So if Outbrain is a native article promotion platform, and YouTube has a video platform, and Facebook is about stories, and Twitter is about tweets, ShareThrough is about native video. For advertisers, we help them distribute their content through this kind of native ad inventory. And for publishers, so publishers like Devour.com, we help them monetize their sites with native video ad placements. So if you're a content producer, this is one of those holy grail placements. If Devour, which is a socially curated video site, picks up your content and promotes it, they do it for free, bang the gong, that's awesome. And it works, and it drives value, it drives views, it drives sharing, it drives conversation. What we're doing is we're helping a brand like Kraft Milk Bite, who's produced these really funny, ironic, dry humor videos, get promoted in Devour as content, as promoted content, as native ad placements. We also work with sites like WordPress, so across 20 million blogs. I think we run across about 5 million. ShareThrough is the promoted video provider on WordPress. Similar on Forbes. If you go to Forbes.com, you can see ShareThrough placements on every page in the More on Forbes section. So placements that feel like content and are content, but are advertiser-driven content. So obviously I know you guys in the room are not really brand advertisers or agencies. You're focused more on the actual content itself. But I wanted to start from this perspective just so you can understand where our heads are coming from. If I think about the future of all this, it's headed towards native. Native is the concept that's, again, beyond interruption, beyond traditional ads, beyond boxes on pages. I think there's 3 reasons why. So I'm going to share the 1, 2, 3 reasons real quick. 1, if I'm going to have control of my media 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now, maybe it's 2 years from now, but if I always have a remote control, so if I always have like a fast forward button or an open new tab button or a mute button, I'm never going to actually watch or read something I don't want to spend time with. In that world, an ad model has to be driven by choice. It can't be driven by interruption. It needs to be driven by choice. 2, this is more of a philosophical point. But if you think about the future of publishers and just businesses, the publishers that have made the most money and created the most equity value for their investors are actually building revenue inside of their business model instead of putting ads on top of their content that's sort of combative with the content. So the user experience needs to actually be built into the advertising experience, or differently, the business model of the site needs to be aligned with the revenue model. Again, this is like fast forward 20 years. This is not going to change in the next year. It's not going to change in the next 2 years. But this is the direction we're going. And if we look at the future and say it's guaranteed to be here, we can pull back to today and think about what's working today. And then 3rd point, same thing, sort of if you can't interrupt me, brands actually have to create content, not ads, that creates value for me. I think the exciting thing to say is that native is actually already here. So if you've seen what I just showed you, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google, Pinterest, Tumblr, WordPress, the platforms of record of the internet have already said no to the traditional IAB ads. They've said no to banners. They've said no to pre-roll and boxes on pages. And they've said yes to native. So one of the things I wanted to share today before I dove into sort of tips and tricks for video was this framework that I've been working on. This is actually the first time I'm presenting it anywhere. I'm going to present it later today, too, at the FM conference. But the concept here is that instead of just talking about all these things as piecemeal, because they feel so different, a Facebook-sponsored story feels completely different from a promoted video on YouTube, which feels completely different from a promoted article on Gawker, which feels completely different from a promoted image on TwitPic. I'm trying to create a framework here that puts them all together. So this is a work in progress, and this is a framework I think that's going to evolve over time, and we'll put online, and we'll start to curate some content around. But this is the native monetization framework. So left side, I don't know if you guys can all read, but promoted videos, promoted articles, promoted music, images, websites, listings. You'll see Google's already on here. Google AdWords and Google search ads are native. You're searching for something, and then you get a promoted listing at the top of the search results. So that's sort of step one, is the platforms we already know and love put into this one framework. Step two here is to realize that some of these platforms are closed platforms, but there's now an opportunity for open native monetization to start happening here. Does anybody know companies like Outbrain, or some of you guys probably know StumbleUpon? I can talk to ShareThrough too. But Outbrain, if you ever go to a blog post on Mashable or something, you see a bunch of links at the bottom, and it's some related links and then some promoted links. That's an example of Outbrain bringing a native ad product to a publisher site like Mashable. So it's not Mashable curating branded content on the site, but it's actually bringing the concept of native to the site. What ShareThrough does is similar. ShareThrough helps brands who are trying to do more brand building with video take their video content and distribute it across a whole set of publishers like WordPress and Devour and Forbes, all sorts of sites that feel like they're much more native than just a banner in the corner. So this is the native monetization framework. I'm sure we're going to evolve this over time, but I wanted to just lay this down today to say, just to contextualize, I guess, what we're talking about. Does that make sense? It's a little esoteric, I told you, but that's my first sort of 15 minutes here. From there, what I want to talk about is if you're thinking about this box and you're thinking about how, as a content creator or a site or a brand marketer, how do I do promoted video marketing, both from a creation standpoint and a distribution standpoint? I'm going to give some tips and tricks here. So starting from the middle and going out to the edges. Obviously, everything starts with content, but I'm going to talk briefly about owned media, briefly about PR strategies, briefly about paid, though I think we already kind of talked about that. And then I'm going to end on sort of the story of earned. You got to give me this quick one here. So if you think about this snowball effect here, it all, again, drives towards earned media. But I'm sure when you think about content, and especially if you ever do promotion of your content, the goal is not to just get somebody to click on it and leave. The goal is to get somebody to watch it, to share it, to comment on it, to subscribe, to like, to tweet, to create earned media around it. So it's all in service of this earned media holy grail. And earned media means lots of things. It means things from organic YouTube views to awards to being on TV to shares to likes to articles and everything. So I'm going to quickly talk about first the production side, second the distribution side. I'm going to do a quick time check. Yeah, I think we're good. So first talk about number one, and then I'll touch on number two. So on the content side, the point that I always make to brands, and again, this is more of a brand content story than it is just an organic content story, but the point I make to brands, and I'm sure it's the same point you make to yourself, is that the content needs to be good. The content can't be interruptive, it can't be annoying, it can't try to sell a product. It needs to start from the place of being good, and that's, again, sort of a pedantic point to put out there. But sometimes when you just forget that right off the bat, you jump way too deeply into an RFP, or you jump way too deeply into what you want as opposed to what the viewer wants. Couple other tips. Brands always ask me, how should I integrate my actual brand into the content? You know, if I'm going to start from a point of it being good, well then how do I make it actually drive value for my brand? And I've got a bunch of examples here. The core point I want to make here is that the brand should work within the context of the actual content. So the litmus test for me is if you could remove the brand from the content, and it's pretty much just as good, then it doesn't even deserve to be there in the first place. Versus taking something like this, Corning Glass. They made this video. I don't need to play the whole thing, but it's this really long video. It's like 9 minutes long or something. And it's about the future of glass. I'm going to keep the sound off here, but it's about the future of glass, like straight from the heart of the engineering team at Corning Glass, which is the company that makes like the Gorilla Glass on the iPhone. This is an example of saying, like, okay, let's remove the brand and let's remove the concept of glass from this video and see if it actually still works. And clearly it doesn't make any sense. The video is driven from the actual Corning Glass itself. Another example here, this is something that I think Chevy did. They did a car in the desert, created a music video, and there's like a 3-minute version of this guy too. I actually don't have a sound hookup. Can one of you guys in the back maybe help me do the sound hookup to the computer? We'll do that for the next video. So this is an example where you take the car out of this. You know, the title of the video on YouTube is like "Car in the Desert Creates a Music Video." You take the car out, it doesn't make any sense. So when you look at it, it's not like that complicated of a point, but it's one of those things that say that the brand needs to be built right into the content. If you can take the brand out and it still works, then it probably doesn't make sense. Do you have a sound hookup? Sweet. Another point about brands, if you're doing brand content, so if you're a content owner or a content producer and a brand has asked you to produce content for them, it's really important to think about the drop-off curve. If you have analytics on your own site, you can think about how long people watch your videos for, but this is the number of seconds watched of the video and the percentage of people still watching at each of those seconds. And every single time we see this, regardless of how long the video is, whether it's a 2-minute video or whether it's a 30-second video, there's always a drop-off point, and there's a point where you get to like 24 seconds of a 30-second video, and people drop off. You get to, 90 seconds of a 100-second video, people drop off. So if you put your brand at the last end card, and you put an end card here that's like, this video was just presented to you by Nike or presented to you by Nestle, even if you got 90% of your people to watch almost the whole video, you've lost the whole brand impact because it's at the very end of it. Another framework I like to share here, and it's getting cut off a little bit at the top, but this is a framework that's just a really easy way to start the conversation. It's to say, what are we trying to accomplish here? So are we trying to accomplish a video that's watchable, shareable, or truly even viral? I think the 2005, the goal was viral, and viral was the hot thing. Viral is now a small part of this world of native video and social video. But the purpose of this framework is to say, when we start this thing, let's get the brand, let's get your team, your production team, the creative agency, yourself, let's get all you in the room and almost play like pin the tail on a donkey. What are we trying to do here? And you realize the creative director might say, well, I'm trying to make this video, whereas the brand might say, I'm trying to make this video, whereas you might say, I'm trying to make this video. And the reason for that is that if you align yourself right off the bat, the production strategies and the distribution strategies will all be aligned too. Another piece of advice here, and again, I'm not going to go through too deep on all of these, but this is something that we've culled from a lot of conversations with a lot of creative directors, a lot of production houses, a lot of brand marketers, thinking about how do they produce really awesome, really shareable, really watchable content. So instead of starting with the story and then figuring out what to do with it, so instead of saying, like, we're going to make a dancing baby video with Evian water bottles, instead of starting there and then trying to figure out what the hell you're going to do, start with the goal, figure out exactly what you're trying to do, and then really think clearly about who we're trying to target, what's the context of how we're going to enter a conversation, what are the persuasion strategies we're employing, and then finally, what story works for all of that. So I'm going to go one slide on each of these. The advice on goal is to focus on a single creative behavior change goal. So instead of thinking about a traditional media goal, a lot of times we'll ask our clients when we get an RFP, what's the goal of this campaign? And I'd say 50% of the time, they'll say, well, we thought really hard about it, and the goal is views, which just doesn't really make any sense, right? If you've tried to produce content to drive a behavior change and some sort of creative action, views is not a creative goal. Views is a media goal. You can buy views. Views can't be the goal. So the goal of any kind of content should be to change my behavior, change my perception, get me to do something that's a little bit beyond what I'm already doing. Example of this is a video. This is for the Dollar Shave Club. And I like this because the goal here was to accompany the press release and accompany the launch of this company with a really cool video that proved to the sort of tech world that this company, which is an LA-based dollar a month razor thing, proved to them that they were hip to the tech world. So we understand viral, we understand the tech community, we understand TechCrunch, we understand Mashable, we understand your inside jokes to prove like we're part of your community. We're not just a random razor company. We're part of the tech environment. So this is a little minute-and-a-half video exactly focused on doing that.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis.
And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, pop-up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
So the goal of this thing, again, obviously was to sell razors eventually, but the goal of this was to accompany the press release to announce their funding, to announce like the launch of the company. Actually, stories that came out after this, part of the goal of this was to walk into other VC offices with already a perception that this company was a really cool, really hip tech company, and they've been pretty successful so far. So single-focused goal. The goal should not be views. The goal should be something a little bit more about behavior change and as specific as possible. Second piece is audience. I guess this is a little bit of a different conversation if you're not talking about branding, but if you are talking about branding, it's not about pushing ads onto your target audience. It's about creating content specifically for the audience that you understand. So a really, really deep, really specific audience archetype. If you're talking about a traditional ad, you make your banner ad, and then you say, I'm going to target 18 to 24-year-old men with a household income of 100K plus with this banner ad. And that makes sense if you're pushing people on or pushing the ad onto your audience. But if you're producing it for an audience, you have to get much more specific. So my advice here is instead of talking about like existential characters, talk about characters you know and talk about characters that are really specific. The reason for this, too, is that a lot of times when it's truly authentically produced for an audience, that authenticity oozes to everybody else. Where instead of trying to produce something for everybody, you produce it for Park Slope foodies who also like golf who went to Stanford, right? There's probably like 100 people in the world that fit that category. But if you produce it for them where they watch it and they say, holy crap, that's just perfect for me, like that's my life in a nutshell, that authenticity will actually make sense for everybody else who watches it. Example of that is like Red Bull. Is anybody here like an extreme snowboarder or an extreme athlete? No? Nobody in the room? Me neither. Have you guys all seen the Red Bull content? Red Bull films and Red Bull snowboarding and all that kind of stuff? Most people have seen it. I see nods here. And the reason for that is because we don't watch Spike TV, so we don't watch like fast action, quick cut, animated overlays, more teen extreme sports content. We've all seen the Red Bull content because it's produced for a really specific audience archetype. And it's not really produced for that. It's produced for the true enthusiasts. So it's produced for the guys who actually do heli-ski snowboarding. And instead of producing a 10-minute or 2-minute or 30-second quick-cut video, they produce a 2-hour film. And it's cinematic, and it's got music, and it's got actors, and it's truly for the evangelist, and it's for the people who love it. The reason for that, again, and the reason we've seen it, is because it's authentic, and because the authenticity, it oozes to us. Even though I might not watch 2 hours of the snowboarding film, I might watch 2 minutes of it. I watched the 2 minutes because it was 2 hours, if that makes sense. The other thing about audience is to think about the audience's audience. Sometimes you produce content for your specific audience, but sometimes you produce it for an audience that has a larger audience. A couple examples of what works and what doesn't work. If you're trying to target students, for example, creating content for professors doesn't really make sense because professors don't have a large digital audience. If you're trying to target students, go back to this point, say, well, what else do students have in their sort of character? What are they? They're not just students, they're also students and aspiring cooks, or they're students and whatever, they're students and techies. Think about that and then produce content for an audience like the tech community or the food community that can reach those students but through the lens of somebody else. Example of that here, this is something that Savor magazine did. I love this video, and actually if you learn anything today, this is going to be the best thing that you learn today. This video is a 10-second trick to peel an entire head of garlic. I'll show it to you. This was produced specifically not for the food blogger, not for the foodie, but it was produced for the food blogger. And the reason for that is that it was packaged up. It was given perfectly to probably a couple hundred food bloggers who wrote about it as if it was actual content produced for their site. And then through that audience, they got to all the actual foodies.
Let's face it, peeling garlic is a pain in the ass. It gets under your fingernails, it takes forever to pull the cloves apart. I'm going to show you how to peel garlic in less than 10 seconds. First, take a head of garlic. You head it with the heel of your hand to open up the cloves. Grab 2 bowls, put the garlic into the bowl, invert the lid over the top, and then shake the dickens out of it. And voila, all of your garlic is peeled.
Totally works.
For more tips and recipes, go to saveur.com.
Something to impress the wives, I guess, tonight. I do this with garlic now. It definitely totally works. Funny thing that came out of this, actually, this video was originally produced for food bloggers. It totally worked. It didn't go viral, but it was watchable. It was truly shareable. And what ended up happening, actually, is that some of the tech blogs, so I think the blog Lifehacker, you guys know Lifehacker? Some nods. Lifehacker is a blog where you can see like cool processes and cool tricks and tips that improve your life, like how to read email faster, or how to like build a bike in 2 minutes, just things like that. And this was an example of one of those things that crossed over, where it crossed over from saying, I think I'm producing it for the foodie audience, but Lifehacker actually picked it up and loved it and started storytelling around it, started a great conversation in Lifehacker. And actually, if I was Saveur, they didn't do it, but if I was them, I would have doubled down on this and done a whole bunch of videos, actually not for the food community, but for the tech community, that are like cool tips and like out-of-the-box tricks for the kitchen. So that's an example of audience, and audience's audience. Context is also important. I think I'll gloss through this in the interest of time, but context, if you think about where discovery happens, so are they watching it on a blog? Are they watching it on Facebook? Are they watching it because they're on your email newsletter? Are they watching it because they're subscribed on YouTube? You know, what's the first frame of the video? Do they have to click on it? Is it click to autoplay? Is it YouTube where it actually does autoplay? Like the actual discovery experience of the video makes a whole world of difference in terms of people watching it and sharing it. Example of that is like, well, you know what? I'm going to skip past this. This is a cool video that Fox made, actually. It was like the future of TED. We're going to put this deck on a server somewhere later, so if you want to watch it, you can, but it's too long. Fourth piece of advice here is persuasion strategy. To give a little context here, I started this company out of Stanford, actually, and I was in a persuasive technology lab at Stanford for a couple of years doing research on how do you take human-to-human persuasion, which has been studied for, 2,000 years, replace one human with a computer, and then find the persuasion strategies like reciprocity or social proof or love that actually works from a computer to a human. And if that works, then you can make it scale. So there's a bunch of really interesting intellectual research. Some of that is sort of applied to this here. Persuasion strategy, thought on sort of two sides of the coin. One, why is somebody going to watch your video? How do you capture attention? And then two, how do you capture endorsement? How do you get somebody to actually share the video? So whether you're a brand or not, this definitely still applies here. My advice today, and I think it's going to evolve over time, but hyperbole is my favorite persuasion strategy for getting somebody to actually choose to watch it. So like back to the garlic video, if that video had been titled something like a cool way to peel garlic in your kitchen, maybe you watch it. If that video is titled, this is the fastest way to peel garlic in the history of the world, peel garlic in 10 seconds, you're going to watch it because it feels like the hyperbole. Hyperbole doesn't have to be like LOL, WTF, OMG. Hyperbole just has to be the sort of hyperbolic concept of whatever you're going for. And it needs to be authentic. Lots of hooks, I think, that are beyond hyperbole, like music and trend jacking and filmmakers and celebrity. They all work to get somebody to watch content. But to me, hyperbole is really just the best one right now. I'm also going to skip this one, but if you haven't seen this, this is the Three Little Pigs from The Guardian. So if you haven't seen this, search for it online. It's awesome. It's a little bit too long to watch right now. The hyperbole of this is the best told, most real-life version of the Three Little Pigs you've ever seen. That's my hyperbole. If that works, you should watch it. The other strategy, this is a strategy that I think is going to work forever, is a strategy of trend jacking or meme jacking, which is keeping your finger on the pulse of what's actually happening in the world and making content that's in reaction to it that drafts off of those trends. And some of those are like macro trends, like weird, creepy, or mini documentaries. Some of them are really micro trends, like Rube Goldberg machines. If you make a video that's a cool version of a Rube Goldberg machine, pretty much people will watch it and share it, because for some reason people love that kind of stuff. CGI babies, you make a CGI baby video, and if it actually delivers on the promise of is it real, is it not real, people will love it and share it. Actually, this is a cool example I'll talk about. There's a little meme here of taking animated GIFs and making them rotate and playing them for hours right now. And it's probably not going to last forever, but there's a little meme around this. And this video is actually a really cool example of saying, okay, what's the meme? We have a TV ad, but how do we make the TV ad relevant to this meme? What they did actually is they uploaded a 5-hour cut of Adriana Lima waving a flag. Does anybody know what this is from? Yeah, car commercial from the Super Bowl. It was the Kia ad, exactly. So in the Kia ad, it was like a 30-second spot. She probably had 2 seconds in it or something. They went on YouTube and they uploaded a video that was 5 hours of Adriana Lima in 1080p waving this flag here. So not only do you get hyperbole, 5 hours HD Adriana Lima, it also drafts off of this trend of like animated GIFs and really long videos and really long images. And people loved it. The comments were really funny too. They'd be like, fast forward to 3 hours and 36 seconds. Like, it's perfect frame right there. Again, ton of examples here. I don't have time to show them, but the deck will be somewhere. Second piece is how do you get somebody to share? So if the first piece is to get somebody to watch, second piece is share. I'm going to give you like a quick piece of advice on each, I guess. So 3 reasons why people share. Identity, emotion, information. And those are macro categories. We're not talking about really specific things here. This is a real macro category. But the purpose of starting macro is to say if you're going to really get somebody to share something, you've got to focus. Instead of trying to say I'm going to make it shareable because it aligns with my identity and because it makes me happy and because it teaches me something, really focus on one of these things and go really deep. So on identity, it's sort of self-explanatory, but the things we post on Facebook and Twitter define who we are. And if you create content that helps me define who I am to my social graph, I'll share it. If it makes me feel a little uncomfortable, so if it's like maybe not politically aligned with me, or maybe if it's not the right sense of humor, I won't share it because it doesn't further my identity. And I think actually Facebook has gotten a lot more identity-driven over the past 6 months or so with Timeline, whereas Newsfeed, it used to be like you'd throw stuff onto your Newsfeed and it'd be gone. Today with Timeline, you're baking it into your character and it lives there forever. So the moment it's on your Facebook profile, somebody for the rest of time can come find it. So we've actually seen that Facebook sharing has changed, and the dynamics around Facebook sharing has changed because it's been much more about identity than about information. Example here, anybody from Chicago? Nice. Okay, are you guys baseball fans at all? No. No? He says no, he says sort of. So if you're a Chicago baseball fan, the authentic audience that this was produced for was the longtime Cubs fan who knows the Cubs haven't won the World Series in 104 years. So 100 years, the Cubs haven't won the World Series. It's like the running drama of Chicago. This is produced specifically for that audience who's like a baseball fan who lives in Chicago, and I'll show you why it works from an identity perspective.
This could be it. And the pitch. The Chicago Cubs have won the World Series. MLB 12 to show. So real, it's unreal. Rated E for everyone.
So another example here, I said a point before, if you create it for a really specific audience, in this case, hardcore baseball fans in Chicago, the authenticity oozes to everybody else. And clearly this works for anybody who likes baseball or anybody who likes gaming or anybody who even just appreciates the emotion here. But you can see why somebody would share this on Facebook because it's like, this is my identity. I'm going to share it on Facebook. Second here is emotion. Obviously a huge category, and there's lots of different subcategories to emotion. I think the point of emotion is to say, can I hold myself accountable to really creating an emotion here? A lot of times you create a video and it's like you think it's a little funny, or it's like maybe it's a little happy or a little sad or a little cute. But to really make it work and to really make it shareable, it needs to truly create that emotion. And you can test it by maybe along the way just storytelling what the video is and seeing if it starts to evoke an emotion, finding other videos similar to see if it evokes an emotion. But if it doesn't evoke a true emotion, this strategy at least won't work. And I'm going to skip these, but I think Google is one of the best brands at creating content that also markets themselves and markets their product, but also creates this really powerful emotion. Then the last piece is information. if you can do one of two things. If you can either give me new information, I'll share it, or if you can package up information I already know. So like the credit crisis 3 or 4 years ago when this video came out, there's this, maybe 2 years ago actually, there's a video that came out that explained the credit crisis through an animated infographic. That was something where I already understood it intellectually. I understood it through reading, but I'd never visualized it, and I'd never seen sort of just like the core raw way it worked visually. So if you package up information and give it to somebody in a new way, people will watch it and share it. So 2 more slides, and I'm going to open questions. I like this concept, and actually I use this in business too, just to run the company. The idea here is if you know where you're going and you can write yourself a postcard from that future and send it back to your present self, it's a lot easier to get to your end goal. So same thing here. If you can think about what is somebody going to actually say when they share it, not why they're going to share it or how they're going to share it or where they're going to share it, but literally like what are they going to say on Facebook or what are they going to say on Twitter or what are they going to write on their blog. If you force yourself to actually write it down and force yourself to make a screenshot of it or just write it on a whiteboard, that almost ends up being like the driving focus of the entire campaign. So every time you're making a video, everybody in the room, from the creative director to the production team to your team to maybe if there's a brand involved, everybody should be able to focus on that and say, okay, the postcard from the future is, and then whatever that phrase is. The postcard from the future can be something from as specific as like, LOL, don't miss what happens at a minute 36. Right? That's a really good postcard from the future because when you start going into production, you have to make sure that it's actually going to work. And if the thing that happens at a minute 36 is just not that cool or not that compelling, nobody's going to share that. If the postcard from the future is, wow, this made me shed a tear, back to the emotional thing, along the way you can just test yourself. Like, is this really going to make somebody say I shed a tear? Like, is it really going to make them say that? Sometimes yes, but sometimes it's a good way just to hold yourself accountable and put up a mirror to yourself. What doesn't work here, and I've had actually a couple times where I've asked a creative director before, like, what's your postcard from the future? And it's so funny, you'll hear people say sometimes, like, well, I think what people are going to say on Facebook is, wow, this video campaign is so innovative and so creative. Who's the production shop? Nobody's saying that. But it's just like a really, really simple way to just hold the mirror up. So that's the last piece here. Then all of this rolls into story. So story is obviously the most important part of any successful video, but all of these things help you define that story. I think that the main point, if there's any here, is that instead of starting with the story, you should start with the goal, start with the audience, find the context, understand the persuasion strategy, and then discover the story that drops out of that. Same way you would do like a mathematical equation, like you find the X variable instead of starting with it and then hoping that it works. So that's the story for today. If I had more time, I'd go into owned media, I would go into PR strategies, and I'd go into paid media. But for now, I think I'm just going to end it and open to questions. And this is my dog, Jackson. Any questions? I think I've got 5-8 minutes. Yeah. Yeah, I hope it's clear by now what I think about intrusive ads. I don't like intrusive ads. My blog, content.ads.com, the company is built around sharing. The concept of native advertising is built around choice. Everything we do is really about users choosing to engage with content. And the reason I wanted to talk about the content side today is that it starts with the content. If you have bad content, you have to interrupt people with it. If you have great content, that's when you can really get people to choose to opt in to spend time with the brand or spend time with your actual content. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan at all of pop-ups or interruptive pre-rolls. Even if you look at YouTube, YouTube introduced pre-roll 3 years ago, and about 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, they introduced a skip button. So on YouTube, when a pre-roll shows up, you're trying to watch a puppy video, and then a Nike ad shows up in front of it, and you're totally caught off guard. It used to be that you'd open a new tab, or you'd mute your computer, or you'd just say, fuck it, and close the browser. Now all you have to do is click skip. And if you look at the skip rates, they started out at maybe 10% of people skipped, and I think now it's 80% plus who actually have the opportunity to click skip. The other 20% probably don't even know you can click it yet. Kind of goes back to the point I made too about the click-through rate declining. As the click-through rate declines, the skip rate will go up, and I think both of those will hit asymptotes at 0 and 100. And in that world where you can't interrupt people and people are going to skip your annoying ads, you actually do have to think about content and sharing and audience, not just selling a product. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So I agree with you. I think attention spans are pretty limited. So I think people generally don't watch more than 1 to 2 minutes, maybe even 2.5 minutes. But sometimes it actually behooves you to make a longer video. So that Corning glass video, the fact that it was 9 minutes, and it might even have been longer than that, but the fact that it was long gave it a little bit more of meat for me to share it. If it was like, here's a quick cut of the future of glass, maybe I watch it, maybe I don't. If this is like the symphony, right? If this is the symphony of the future and it has every single thing you could possibly imagine, you're not going to watch it for 9 minutes or 20 minutes. You might watch for a minute, but the fact that it's long actually makes you want to watch it. I mean, Red Bull's an example. They make 2-hour films. They made that snowboarding film called The Art of Flight. It's 2 hours. And it's so good, actually, that they're selling it on iTunes now. And people do watch it. But they also cut quick clips out of it and turn them into shareable, branded content online. Yeah.
What do you think about letting your audience know ahead of time how much time they're committing to see?
Yeah, if you notice, actually, it's funny that you said that. When I play videos here, I actually roll over so you can see the little time bar. Because I think when people don't know how long it is, they start to get fidgety and uncomfortable. And like, we're 30 seconds in, but is it going to go another 4 minutes? Or is it done in 10 seconds? So I think, yeah, I mean, when it's online, YouTube always has the little scrubber. Anytime we run an ad placement, you always have a scrubber so you know how long it is. But I think that's a good point. Ads or content where it starts, but you're not really sure how long you've invested. Yeah, I agree. That sort of creates this weird cognitive dissonance. Did you watch a little bit of it, though? You just bailed totally? Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's part of their purpose, though. I think that's what I was just saying to him, is that, like, they didn't really want you to spend 9 minutes. Maybe they wanted you. They didn't expect you to spend 9 minutes. If the video had just been a couple things, though, it wouldn't have been as shareable, because it would have been like, here's a quick snippet from the Corning Glass Labs, instead of like the opus symphony of our vision of the future. Yeah. I'm not sure I've really seen success with that, actually. You guys probably know more than me since you manage your own content sites. But when it comes to brand content, brands usually either create episodic content that's like episode 1 comes out, and then a week later episode 2 comes out, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, and they're maybe linked through related videos. But I haven't really seen the like 50-minute video or 10-minute video with cuts where you can jump through to chapters of it. There's probably something there. I don't know. I can't really speak to it. Any other questions? Time for lunch? One more question, then we'll go. Yeah, somewhere. Since I don't know the details of the conference, I'll put it on my blog. I'll have a post on the blog. It'll be like Streaming Media East presentation. I'll put it on SlideShare or something. So content.ads.com. That's the short sort of share through and Dan philosophy. I like the pictures. But yeah, thanks guys. I really appreciate the time and thanks for staying.